And that's what that word apocalypse means. You know, it's from the Latin and the Greek, you know, lifting of the veil, that which is hidden to be revealed. You know, it's like we're going to get our earplugs taken out and our veil taken off our eyes and go, oh, wow, there's a greater reality out there.
Well, it's like the more people that are being made accountable for their actions as well recently, not just like we've seen a few high-profile people recently that have been caught up in, caught you, you know, look what you said or what you did is not acceptable, and people are seeing that. But on a personal level, for people that are not necessarily in the press, the same thing's sort of happening, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a real, you know, transparency going on right now. So it's like, be really careful of, you know, what you're saying. You know, I think Facebook even had this glitch about a week or two ago where everyone's private messages showed up on their walls.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. That's the accountability stuff, isn't it?
It's accountability. So I've been saying a lot to people, be careful, you know, when you're speaking to someone, when you're emailing someone, would you want, if you are speaking about someone, how would you feel if that person found out what you were saying?
Yeah. Because,
you know, that's part of this growing awareness and growing consciousness. What we say about each other, it actually affects everybody, you know. It affects you, it affects them. It's like putting your garbage out on the street. And we wouldn't do that, you know. We wouldn't just chuck our garbage into someone else's house. But when we talk about people in a certain way, that's essentially what we're doing. So just becoming more aware of that. And I'm just loving everybody's response to, you know, the high-profile people that have been caught out saying things. Just people's response, even standing up against that, you know. It's like almost left, right, and centre. People are putting out fires lately because everybody's just flaring up at every single thing, saying, no, you can't do that anymore. And people who have been still stuck in that old energy, who are so used to being that way, I think are a little bit almost in shock, taken aback, going, well, I've always been this way. Why is everyone all of a sudden upset at me?
And I'm finding that not all of it is necessarily, you know, action and bad and enough of this, let's stop. Sometimes this connection between all of us around the world is growing in positive ways as well. And I think one that's really stood out for me recently is, you know, the big song. So you had Party Rock Anthem that came out that suddenly was more successful than any other song in history. And now it's Gangnam Style, you know, and it's when my 9-year-old wanted to show it to me, by the time we'd watched it, it had 1,000 more likes.
Yeah.
I have never seen a song grow that fast. So the connection between us, I mean, technology we have a lot to thank for that as well. But the fact that we are all connecting in positive ways as well as the, you know, conscious action way is fascinating, isn't it?
It's fascinating. It's amazing. It's you know, there's just so much evidence out there that, you know, more people want a harmonious, fun, joyous, happy world than not.
Yeah. And
I think the internet is finally giving a voice to the majority.
Yes, indeed.
You know, because so often I think our lens of perception regarding how the world is like has always traditionally been given to us from the media.
Right.
And if we were to watch the media, and only the media, you know, I'm talking about the traditional mainstream news media, you know, we'd be led to believe that everything's crap and everyone's bad and just bad things happen.
Absolutely.
Whereas these, you know, the social media, internet, YouTube videos that go viral, they're actually showing us, wow, there are good people out there.
That's right, yeah, giving a voice to everybody that's not necessarily on the television.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when we've talked about, you know, high-profile people and the news and that kind of thing. I'm wondering also on a scientific level about the physical planet and where it sits in its orbit. I know it orbits around the sun. I know the 26,000-year cycle we were talking about is the sun going around the galaxy. I think that's right.
Well, what they say at the end of the 26,000-year cycle is that we have alignment. Our sun and our Earth planet has an alignment with the galactic center that only happens once every 26,000 years. On a Mayan level, or even all the ancients actually, they saw that particular point in space, place in space, was known as a crossroads, where we have a choice. Where the choice was basically, you know, keep going how we're going and self-destruct, or use this opportunity before us to make a quantum leap in consciousness and a quantum leap in how we live. So the difference that's happening now, of course, we have changes every 10 years. You know, every decade is different from the decade before. So the shift that we're in now, it's not just another decade type shift. Something will definitely happen. No one really knows what or how or when, but something will happen to give us that quantum leap where our entire reality changes for the positive, I believe. And something that is happening now, you know, on a real, you know, scientific level is we're entering, or we're in now, but certainly the solar maximum is happening in 2013.
What's that?
The solar maximum is when the solar flares are happening very regularly. And yeah, very regularly.
Has it happened before? You know, like billions of years in the past? Has it happened?
Yes. So the solar flares have their maximum period regularly, or you know, they have cycles, you know, of a certain number of years. However, the difference with this particular solar maximum is that never before have we had this many people connected to the power grids, this many people connected to electricity, this many people dependent on the internet, for example. So what NASA, you know, reports is that when a solar flare is strong enough and powerful enough, so we're talking about the strong X-class solar flares, and so what solar flares are, it's like a electromagnetic eruption.
Yeah.
Or
photos of them, they really do look like a point, don't they? There's a point.
Yeah, so it's like a release. It's like a magnetic release of energy from the sun.
Like a pimple.
Yeah, and when that happens and when it's strong enough, it can affect our navigational systems, our satellites, and our power grids. So if we have ones that are strong enough, potentially, you know, the power grids can go off. There was recently a situation in India, you know, where I think half the country lost their power, and they attributed that potentially to that massive solar flare that happened at that time.
Right.
And, you know, there was a huge solar flare in 1859 when they had a particularly strong solar maximum. And, you know, back then they didn't have the world connected in the way we are now.
Right.
You know, can you imagine if all of a sudden, not just a country, but the whole world has no access to power, to electricity?
And I've heard, like through the spiritual teacher that I use, that it's very likely that is about to come up pretty soon anyway. But it may last for a couple of weeks, so it's worth thinking about, well, what do I need around the house, rather than panicking, oh my God, this is happening, to stop and go, well, what do I need? Okay, well, I'm going to need like an extra gas bottle for the barbecue. I'm going to need some way to remove waste if the water stops, because if water is pumped to your house, that's by power, so, or gas, you know, you can bet that there'll be some sort of regulation within the distribution of gas that is run by power. So, okay, so how do we get around all these things? And it's just worth making sure you've got the reserves that you need to cover that for a couple of weeks at least. Yeah,
that's the way I look at it. If we can't get to the shops in a couple of weeks, you know, how would we be? Do we have candles if we can't switch on the light in a couple of weeks? So it's no reason to panic at all. Just be prepared. Also, I think it's going to be a really positive experience and positive opportunity in that it will provide a time where we switch off from artificial power, so to speak, go into authentic power. You know, so many people, you know, you're sitting around the dinner table, someone's watching TV, someone's on the internet, someone's with their BlackBerry, someone's with their iPhone, you know, so it'll actually be a time of connection.
Yeah, nobody's talking to each other while they're doing that. So, you kind of forget who your kids are and who your husband is if you end up absorbed in the internet or entertainment or whatever.
Yeah. And another really interesting thing that's happening with the solar flares, as I mentioned, because it's a release of electromagnetic energy and it affects the power grids, navigational systems, satellites, etc. We, humans, people, you know, are also made up of electromagnetic energy fields. So, you know, it's affecting us as well. The way it's affecting us, or the way that I see it energetically anyway, is that it's kind of like, you know, anything not in alignment with the higher frequency energies that we're moving into, or even the higher frequency energies of that magnetic release, is coming up. So it's like anything that you've put under the carpet, consciously or subconsciously, boom, comes up. So very often we'll find, you know, especially lately, especially this year when they've been so regular, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you're just feeling anger or rage or irritable, or you're feeling sad or depressed, or you're feeling like, putting on the Bridget Jones all by myself, song, and it's
Singing really loudly.
Yeah. And what I find particularly fascinating is every solar flare seems to have its theme, seems to have its energy. So often a solar flare will come, and it's like I have this feeling, but I know that it's not mine. I know that it's what everybody's feeling at the moment. And I've started regularly, posting about these solar flares on my Facebook page, and it's absolutely, and I invite everybody to share their stories. And it's amazing how literally, hundreds of people, comment that, yes, that's exactly how I felt that day. Everybody that day felt that they were sad or lonely or alone. Everybody on another day felt, that they were angry and they were remembering childhood issues.
Right.
Everybody, when Julia Gillard had her speech recently, so many people were having issues around the feminine and around themselves as women, or their wives, their sisters, their girlfriends, their daughters as women, being bullied or abused or violated in some way. So it's amazing. It's such an interesting field to research and to be aware of and to study, that solar flares are not just affecting physical things like power grids, they're affecting our personal power.
And our physical bodies. So I guess that's a good message for everybody to have a think about and be aware of, that whenever all that sort of stuff is coming out, whether you're bursting into tears or you feel like you need to go and punch the pillow, that it's okay, and it's likely that everybody else is feeling in a similar way. So you've just got to forgive yourself, really, don't you?
You do. And, and for people who are interested, you can go to spaceweather.com. They always, they let you know if a solar flare has happened and how strong it is. So if you're feeling really out of sorts and everybody at work was just crazy that day, and you might be thinking to yourself, I wonder if there was a solar flare, you'll be surprised more often than not. You'll go on spaceweather.com and, yep, sure enough, there was.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, what I'll do with this video is I'm going to pop it onto my blog. For everybody here, I'm going to put down the links to Dana's site and her Facebook page as well. And perhaps, Dana, if you could give me some links to the stuff that we've talked about today as well, like, well, we'll do the space weather one, but even groups where people can talk about what's going on if they don't understand it. Perhaps we can add some of those as well. That'd be useful for people.
Yeah, sure. I can certainly direct people to my Facebook page, I think, because that's you can find that on my website through danamrkich.com. It's linked there. And that's very helpful because there's a growing community on there where people are, speaking to each other, sharing their stories, just sharing what's going on for them. I highly recommend spiritlibrary.com also. A lot of really wonderful people are regularly posting their articles on there, explaining what's going on week by week with the energies. And it's very soothing to find that whatever you're going through, a lot of other people are going through as well. So a lot of support can be found on places like that.
Sounds great. Thank you very much for your time today, Dana. It's been really great talking to you.
Oh, thanks, Annabelle. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, thanks.
Bye.